Attention, you're listening to the Todd Huff Radio Show, America's home for conservative, not bitter talk radio. Be advised that the content of this program has been documented to prevent and even cure liberalism, and listening may cause you to lean to the right. Here's your conservative, but not bitter host, Todd Huff.
Yes, my friends, the Democrats are falling all over themselves for an opportunity to fly down to El Salvador, stand beside a illegal alien who was deported from this country, looking for the photo op, looking for, well, to show the American people that they're more concerned, I guess, with the folks who come into this country illegally than with the folks who have been negatively impacted by what has been allowed to happen in this country over the past many decades. Of course, reaching a fevered pitch the last 4 years with President Joseph Bribery in office, my friends. Anyway, we'll get to that. I'll get to some comments about Chris Van Hollen. My, oh my, there's a lot of stuff. Stephen Miller from the administration out there demanding reparations, but not in the way that you would initially or typically think. And I've got Lisa Murkowski, a U.S. Senator, Republican, by the way, who's scared, very, very scared of President Trump. I can't make this stuff up, my friends. We'll get to these things in due course as we go through the 2 hours of this program. Before we get rocking and rolling, though, my friends, let me remind you that we're nearing the end of time where we're accepting founding members of the Inner Circle, where you can get a lifetime membership for just $99. That's a lifetime membership to the Inner Circle, where we will have some bonus content, where we will have some video calls. We'll have a lot of things that we're going to grow and build and develop. This is where the rubber kind of meets the road, if you will. I like to say where we help one another get better and not bitter, helping to, again, not just engage in an intellectual activity or exercise as we listen to the content and think about the events, talk about the events and so forth of the day. This is where some real things will get done and some real insightful discussions, teaching, all that sort of stuff. So if you're interested in that, doing it for a limited time. Again, this is a lifetime membership to the Inner Circle. Founding member, all you got to do is go to toddhuffshow.com/join, and you can secure your spot today or learn more about that. You can also text the word JOIN, J-O-I-N, to 317-210-2830. Again, 317-210-2830, or visit toddhuffshow.com/join. That's a limited time offer. There'll be other ways to join the membership community as it grows and develops. But for lifetime membership, we're wrapping that up here very soon. All right, so let's get to what I consider the main story, what I want to talk about here today, my friends, on this program. I'm looking here at Town Hall. Now, as always, if you're a new listener, you can go to our website, toddhuffshow.com, go to the stack of stuff. That is in honor and memory of the late, great Rush Limbaugh, who used to say the stack of stuff. He had a physical stack of stuff, a physical stack of papers. Shake those papers, rattle those papers like I just did for the microphone there. But he had those physically printed off. He would go through those. We have a digital stack that you can see on our website. And the reason it's there is in case I talk about something that you want to take a look at. I was having a conversation yesterday with someone about sources and, fact checking and that sort of stuff. This is the information I have that we're talking about. Now, it doesn't mean that something in one of these stories isn't not, maybe it's incorrect. We find out later. That's the nature of some opinions. That's the nature of journalism, but it's not deliberately or grossly negligent in its the sources that we look at regarding. We do source MSNBC and CNN. Those I have little to no faith in. but we do it to illustrate just how insane some of these folks have become and what they're out there peddling. But when it comes to things that we discuss seriously, if you want to see those, look more into that, you can go to the website, toddhuffshow.com, go to the stack. All right, headline here, more Democrats have landed in El Salvador, written by Katie Pavlich at townhall.com. A number of House Democrats landed in El Salvador Monday in an effort to bring MS-13 gang member, wife beater, alleged human trafficker, and illegal alien Kilmar Abrego Garcia back to the United States. Today, U.S. Representatives, this was on Monday, Robert Garcia, Maxwell Frost, Yasmin Ansari, Maxine Dexter arrived in El Salvador to pressure the Trump administration to abide by a Supreme Court order to facilitate the return of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a Maryland man with protected legal status who was unlawfully deported by the Trump administration. Mr. Abrego Garcia is currently detained in El Salvador despite having no criminal conviction in the United States, a press release put out by the members states. Now, pause just a moment. We went through this. I don't know if it was this week, maybe it was late last week when we talked about this. The Supreme Court order, the lower court order did say that the Trump administration needed to return Mr. Abrego Garcia back to the United States. The Supreme Court, from my reading, from an analysis that I conducted, I shared that with you by our robust AI here, and just my own studies, I don't think that that's accurate. I think what's accurate is the Supreme Court has said that Trump should help facilitate the release of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. That is not necessarily synonymous with the return to the United States. He's not an American citizen. I don't know how to possibly explain this. First of all, he has protected legal status. What does that mean? He was not unlawfully deported. He had the only thing, and listen, I'm not trying to gloss over this. This could be a problem, but the courts ruled, a judge ruled, that he couldn't be deported to El Salvador because his life was in danger there, although I think the Trump administration is saying that is no longer valid because the gangs that he was in danger, his life was allegedly in danger of, being taken by, are no longer a threat in the nation of El Salvador. That's my understanding. So this statement that I read here off the top that's at this townhall.com site is riddled with things that are half-truth, maybe not even half-truths. A Maryland man, it says, he's an El Salvadoran citizen. He's a man who illegally resided in Maryland, an illegal alien who was illegally residing in Maryland. How is that a Maryland man? I mean, if I go across the border to Canada illegally, am I suddenly an Ontario man if I go to Ontario? I mean, what in the world is going on here? He's an illegal alien. The amount of mental gymnastics to get to these words being put, I would say to paper, but probably digitally written, but put to paper, lack of a better phrase, is ludicrous. He has no criminal conviction. No one said he had a criminal conviction. He wasn't, this is intentionally deceptive. He was not deported because he was criminally convicted. We're not trying to say he's guilty of a certain crime, and he's guilty of it, and he needs to be deported. We are saying, or the Trump administration is saying, he's here illegally. That's the fact. That alone means that you are eligible for deportation. That alone. The way that they determine who gets to the front of the line is, I've been through this. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse here. But it's important as I go through this and have this conversation today, and we need to be aware that some people don't watch or listen to all 2 hours of this program each and every day, which is a shame, but I understand. If you missed the program, you can always go to the website, go to our Rumble channel, or you can download the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. But the bottom line here is that this is a convoluted statement, and it is very deceptive, very misleading to begin with. And Katie Pavlich addresses some of this. Garcia is not a Maryland man and does not have protected legal status. Absolutely right. In 2019, she writes here, he told local police that he entered the country illegally. He was given, by the way, as we talked about previously, a deportation order. The only thing that you can say that Trump and his administration did that they shouldn't have done, per the judge, not per the law, but per a judge's interpretation of the events at hand, was to deport him to El Salvador. He didn't have protected status. He was an illegal alien. The only thing he was protected from, he was given what's called a withholding order. A withholding order, that means his deportation to El Salvador was prevented from happening. That's what happened over the weekend. She writes, Democrat Senator Chris Van Hollen, who visited El Salvador last week in an effort to do the same, made the rounds on Sunday shows just to justify his trip. He falsely claimed that Garcia is an American. He says that here in this is a short clip. We'll go ahead and play this. He's on This Week with ABC News. He slips. He has a slip of the tongue here. Listen to this.
I think at some point, the president of El Salvador realized it was looking really bad to have this person who'd been absconded from America, from the streets of Maryland, in one of their prisons.
Yeah. He said he tried to stop himself. That he's not an American. This is, in fact, my friends, the point. So, he's not an American in spite of what Chris Van Hollen says. In fact, you see how he danced? Look at the mental gymnastics on this. An a person who was absconded from the streets of America. Could you not say that about any person who was here in this country illegally? Could you not say that about someone who was detained by authorities for a violent crime? There was a warrant for their arrest. Do you not see? I know you do, but does the rest of the world not see that the way that this is talked about and framed in the media can certainly impact and influence the way that people interpret these events? You know, you could say some individual was absconded, taken from the streets, removed from his family. Oh, why was he done? Why did that happen? Well, because he murdered the neighbor. That seems to be a little bit of information that is necessary, but they keep that sort of stuff from us, or they bury it in the story. They try to make it sound like something it is not. Why are they doing this? I mean, on the one hand, this would appear to be politically just insane to do this, because the American people want a secure border. The American people are in favor of violent people who are the people who are deported first being those who are connected with, involved with gangs that are being arrested, that have been accused of or convicted of violent crimes, those sorts of things. The American people are behind that. They're not against that. The Democrat Party is against that. But what are they doing here? They're trying to play a game of confusion. They're trying to make the American people confused about what's going on here. They want you to think about him, Mr. Abrego Garcia, as an American citizen. That's why they call him a Maryland man. It's not a Maryland man any more than I was a Mexican man when I spent my honeymoon in Nuevo Vallarta. That's not what I was, and that is not what he is. So that's what's going on here. And there's been other American U.S. Congress people that go down there. The left is falling all over themselves to line up and to have a photo op, to have a press conference connected to Kilmar Abrego Garcia. This is not the first time that the left has done this, my friends. They do this routinely with people who have committed crimes. They make these people out to be heroes. I said that last week or whenever we talked about this initially. I said Kilmar Abrego Garcia, if you listen to news reports, if you listen to Democrat senators, Democrat congresspeople, you would believe that he is an American hero. You would believe that he is a modern day, I don't know, take your pick, Thomas Jefferson, Paul Revere, Samuel Adams, Patrick Henry, George Washington. This guy, Rosa Parks, this guy is a modern day equivalent, they want you to believe, of some American hero who is standing in the face of an injustice perpetrated by the American government under the leadership of the evil, racist Donald Trump. That's what they want you to think, my friends. The problem is the facts do not bear that out. A lot more to say about this, but let me take a little bit of a breather here and talk to those of you who are in sales. If you are in sales, you know that it is tough, but you don't have to do it alone. Matt Easton and Easton University, they have a system for you, but they don't have just a system. They've got a process, accountability of sorts, where you can jump on multiple coaching calls each and every week to go through what you're learning through the courses and the training and the curriculum and so forth. And that is how you improve your circumstance. It's hard to improve something you aren't measuring or having steps that you have to follow, things that you're holding yourself accountable. You know, sales is a activity-based business. If you want to have a certain pipeline, you got to have a certain amount of activity and a system and the right skills to make that all happen. Matt's here to help you create that plan, and he'll help hold you to it. So, if you've been spinning your wheels, if you've been feeling stuck, this is your chance to break through. Visit toddhuffshow.com/Easton to get more information, to sign up. And if you sign up, become a student through that site, through our website, you'll also get a free bonus of a welcome call from Matt, where he'll jump on the phone with you and walk you through your particular challenges, where you are, what's going on, help you prioritize, help to make sense of the scenario and get you started, hit the ground running. toddhuffshow.com/Easton. Again, that's toddhuffshow.com/Easton. You know that I like on this program. You know, if you've listened to this program, that I like Scott Jennings. Scott Jennings is on CNN. He is a glutton for punishment. This is a town hall article that I've had pulled. This is earlier in the week. This is written by Rebecca Downs. Scott Jennings has some thoughts on Chris Van Hollen after Margaritagate. Now, why do they call it Margaritagate? Well, because Chris Van Hollen, Democrat senator from Maryland, flies down to El Salvador. You'll remember initially he was refused the opportunity to sit down and meet with Mr. Kilmar Abrego Garcia. But finally, I think the next day or perhaps the day after that, he was given the opportunity to sit down with him. And so they have a little table set up. They sit down. I don't know if they had lunch, but they definitely had margaritas. There's two photos here. This was posted townhall.com on their townhall.com or townhall.com is their Twitter or X handle. They posted these two pictures. There's the official picture that shows Chris Van Hollen being ever so empathetic to Mr. Kilmar Abrego Garcia, an American hero who's not an American, but he's an American hero nonetheless if you listen to the left. And he's leaning in. He's got his hand on the table showing sympathy, empathy, all of that. I'm here to help you. This is unacceptable, what has happened to you. He's fighting, by the way, with U.S. tax dollars. This was a taxpayer-funded trip for him to fly down to El Salvador and sit down with Mr. Abrego Garcia, who's not even an American citizen, who I don't care what they say, he is not a constituent of the senator. Just because he resides in the state illegally, it doesn't mean that he is a constituent, that Mr. Senator Van Hollen is somehow representing him. He shouldn't be representing him because he's not supposed to be here. The world is going on here. I feel sometimes that the left, actually I know the left, lives in a bizarro universe where up is down and right is wrong and black is white and all that stuff. It's the opposite. It's the opposite of everything that we have learned and that reality is based upon here in the real world. They live in the bizarro universe, and so to them it makes perfect sense that Senator Van Hollen is the representative of an illegal alien from El Salvador. He gets sent to his country, his home country. Van Hollen wants to bring him back using taxpayer-funded missions and operations to bring him back. They have this photo op here. There's two pictures. They've got the official photo. It's up close and personal. It looks like they're having a real serious, genuine conversation. Chris Van Hollen looks ever so concerned, and he's ready to fight for someone who's not even one of his constituents, not even who's someone who's an American. But there's another picture beside it, and it shows, I don't know if it's an aide there with him. It's got three people at the table. It's from a different angle, but you can see that they've been drinking margaritas. So that's probably on the taxpayer dime as well. Chris Van Hollen goes down there, has lunch with Mr. Abrego Garcia. Let's get the margaritas out. They took them out, for whatever you want to think about that. They took them out of the official photograph that they put on their that they posted and wanted to, show Chris Van Hollen in this light of fighting for someone that was targeted by the Trump administration, as they would say. So we got all this going on. Scott Jennings has some comments about this on CNN, which I'll play in a moment, but I'm at the end of the first segment here. I've got to take a breath, got to take a time out, my friends. Sit tight. You are listening here to the home of conservative, not bitter talk. I am your host, Todd Huff, back here in just a minute. Welcome back, my friends. So, for the break, I told you we were going to play a clip that Scott Jennings reposted, or posted, I should say, on X from earlier. Actually, it was over the weekend, I believe. I've had this in the stack for a long time. The reason that I'm bringing this up now is because this is what the left is defending. Listen, I have been fair on this. I understand a couple of things about this. I understand when Mr. Kilmar Abrego Garcia is deported to El Salvador. I understand that there was a judge's order against that happening. That order goes back to 2019. I don't know if that's an eternal order. I don't know if the reasons that issue were cited, if those concerns are suddenly disappear, if the administration can then act. I'm not a lawyer in that sense, but it would seem to me if the circumstances changed, assuming that Mr. Abrego Garcia was actually at risk of losing his life or being harmed in the first place, which I don't know. I mean, that's what the judge said. I take it for what it's worth. But if that's the case, then there are concerns and questions and problems. Should that have been dealt with in the courts? Is this a mistake and oversight? I don't know. The other problem is you deport someone, he ends up in an El Salvadoran prison, a very notoriously tough prison. So now you've got this concern. Now, you deport a guy who's not, he's not supposed to be here. He's from that country. They take him and put him in there. Why they put him in there? Did he have a record there? I don't know. And are we getting all the information? I'm not sure. But I do know this. At some point, we can't control what happens in every single country around the world. We're not here to, he's not a U.S. citizen. He's supposed to go back to his home country. Now, I understand that raises concerns if he's not being treated fairly there, but that's also, at what point can all of that be thrust upon the Trump administration? I don't know, but I understand the questions and concerns. I don't want this guy to be punished inappropriately, but at some level, I don't know, and I'm not the one who, we can't control all of those mitigating factors. And it becomes at some point a little complicated if we're suddenly concerned about, all of these ancillary details. The bottom line is we have a law to enforce here, and we ought to be able to do that. While at the same time, I understand being concerned and not wanting to see an injustice done to someone, but I also don't know that we're in a position. I don't know if this is something. Why did he end up in the prison? I don't know. I don't know if that's even out there. If it is, I haven't seen it. Anyway, so here we've got, but again, why don't we know that? We don't know that because they just want to talk about these circumstances because they believe it is beneficial to their cause, their movement here, which is to defend someone who's not even a legal resident, not supposed to be here. And this helps them to damage and tarnish Trump, and also to stand in opposition against the entire deportation movement that is happening. It's funny to me. I listen to some of these leftists on social media. I don't do that very often, but I'll read some comments and see some things. And occasionally I'll hear someone say, well, more deportations were done under Biden or whatever. Well, for starters, there were a lot more people coming across the border. 95% roughly fewer people crossing the border now than were crossing a year ago. Number one. Number two, I don't remember in the Biden administration people self-deporting. I don't remember stories of coyotes, smugglers being contacted to sneak people across the border, not from Mexico to here, instead from here to Mexico. I don't remember those stories because that wasn't happening. But now we've got a climate where there is pressure for people to get out of this country before they're caught and deported. That happens when you have someone who takes immigration law and deportation seriously. We've not had that in half a century. I don't know that we've ever had that. Anyway. So, we know the virtue signaling, we know the political posturing, the left is engaged here with this whole entire shenanigan. And Scott Jennings goes on to CNN to talk about this on one of the programs there. He's on with Laura Coates live, although she's not in. There's a guest host, it looks like. Just want you to listen how he frames this. I love this, by the way.
Yeah, listening to Van Hollen explain all this, like if you're explaining how you came to be sipping margaritas with an MS-13 gangbanger who's lived illegally in the United States for 14 years before he was finally deported, you're losing, okay? You're losing. You're losing optically, you're losing politically, and I assume the people of Maryland are wondering, why doesn't this guy ever work as hard for us as he does for this guy who's down in El Salvador, which, by the way, is where he's from in the first place. Look, macro view for me, the American people elected Donald Trump to deport illegal aliens. They especially elected him to deport people who are affiliated with very violent transnational gangs that we now characterize as terrorist organizations. I think he's doing his job, and I think the American people are behind him, and I think the Democrats like Van Hollen look ridiculous standing up for him more than they stand up for the people of the United States of America who are actually citizens of this country.
I mean, it does look ridiculous, doesn't it? You can have concerns about some of those things I mentioned, have questions. You can not be happy about some of these things, but to stand up for this, at its core, what we have is someone who is not in this country illegally, who clearly appears to be part of a gang. He's got MS-13 tattooed on his knuckles. There's been reports his wife filed claims. I don't know if she was his wife or girlfriend at the time, but she filed claims that he was beating her, spousal abuse, or abuse of her when she was his girlfriend, whichever it was. There's lengthy reports of this. She said that she never, to what I saw, I haven't seen her say it didn't happen. She basically tried to reframe it as a disagreement. A disagreement that involved him allegedly hitting her with his boot and so forth. Anyway, there's lots of reasons to be concerned with this guy. When he was arrested with known members of the MS-13 gang. So, I mean, there's lots of red flags here. Bottom line is, again, at its core, we've got someone who's not supposed to be here, who can be deported. I've gone through the fact that he was not supposed to go to El Salvador, but he had a deportation order in this country since 2019, I believe it was. He's only here because his home country, he could not be sent to because a judge said his life would be at risk if he was sent back there. And his life would be at risk, as I understand it, from rival gangs. Scott Jennings commented on this on a CNN show recently as well. I think I might have played that as well. I can't remember if I played it. I know I've watched it. But the bottom line here is that we're being lied to and gaslit, as always, because they are trying to do anything except to slow what's happening in this country. They fear what Trump is doing. They know that it is popular. They're out of ideas. I mean, this party is crumbling right before our eyes. In fact, that's in the stack of stuff as well. There's a lot of really bad news for the Democrat Party, especially as it pertains to the younger generation. I've got some polling data that we'll get to and talk about as well, but they are losing in every conceivable way. Reasonable Americans believe that this country should be safe. It should be safe from illegal immigration. It should be safe from those people who come across the border who are gang members. What on earth are we even talking about? Gang members, alleged gang members. If you're here illegally, you don't have the right to be here if you're a church pastor, let alone a gang member. So listen, to be deported from here because you're illegally here is totally acceptable. It's what should happen. I understand there's circumstances where that can't be the case, but the bottom line is that the reason for his deportation, ultimately, it doesn't need to be tied to anything gang related. It's just that when there are gang charges and allegations and other problematic things about these individuals, they go to the front of the line. Anyway, really quickly, my friends, I know I've shared with you MyPillow has a special. They're offering you wholesale prices. They have a big allotment of sheets that was supposed to be part of an order for the big box stores. That didn't go through, so now they're passing those savings along to you. To get those savings on Giza Dream Sheets or Percale bed sheets, head on over to mypillow.com. Use promo code Todd to get wholesale prices, and you'll see that there are free shipping options available too. mypillow.com, promo code Todd, or if you prefer, call 800-615-2015, 800-615-2015. Quick timeout for me, my friends. Sit tight. Back here in just a minute.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Welcome back, my friends. Third and final segment of this, the first hour of the program today. 2 sound bites I want to get to here in this, the shortest segment of the hour. First, I want to play a clip of Senator Chris Van Hollen. It's very, very short. He's on with Shannon Bream on Fox News Sunday, and he is asked about who funded this trip for him to go down and sip margaritas with a deported alleged MS-13 gang member, and this is what he had to say.
Who did pay for this trip?
This was an officially cleared, congressional trip, cleared on a
taxpayer
bipartisan
dollars.
basis. Yes, like every other trip.
Like every other trip. This is just the normal run-of-the-mill trip for the Democrat Party. To fly down to El Salvador with someone who's not an American citizen, someone who is alleged to have beaten his girlfriend and wife, someone who is alleged to be a member of the MS-13 gang, someone who is alleged to be a nuisance, a threat to the safety of people in the state of Maryland and elsewhere, wherever this guy allegedly is. And Chris Van Hollen flies down there using your hard-earned tax dollars, probably to pay for the margaritas as well, my friends, that he's sipping with the alleged gangbanger. This is a normal run-of-the-mill acceptable thing. By the way, in a totally unrelated note, if you want to know the sorts of things that DOJ is uncovering with waste, fraud, and abuse, what would you classify this as? This is at least waste. It potentially abuse. I don't know if I could go as far to say that it's fraud. This whole narrative is fraudulent. What we're being told is not the truth, but this is the sort of thing that people are upset that the taxpayer dollars are being sit for or being used for. So we got that. Now, the other thing I wanted to play for you in the time I have remaining, and I'm going to be able to get this in, I wasn't sure. Tom Homan, the border czar here, was on ABC This Week on Sunday as well. This, by the way, much of what we talked about, not all, but a lot of what we talked about is in this article written by Katie Pavlich at townhall.com, which again is in the stack of stuff. But this clip is in there as well if you want to see it. But Tom Homan raises some questions here. We got this senator. Now we've got other representatives. I read you their names in the earlier in the segment when I was reading part of this article. But we've got other representatives that are going down to El Salvador for their moment with the great American hero, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who's not even American, but is yet still in the minds of the radical left, an American hero. So Tom Homan goes on and he asks questions about things that Senator Van Hollen could have done, that these other Democrats could have done as well to support Americans who are going through grief, who are going through loss after their family members or they themselves have been harmed by someone who's here illegally who may be part of a gang like MS-13. Here's what he has to say on ABC This Week.
As a U.S. Senator traveled to El Salvador on taxpayer dime to meet with an MS-13 gang member, public safety threat, terrorists. I mean, in the meantime, the day before he traveled, an illegal alien was arrested for murder, released to the streets rather than honoring an ICE detainer in his very own state. Well,
so he doesn't care about that? A member was arrested, violent record, released back onto the streets. No word about that. No concern to meet with the families that are threatened by that. Holman continues here.
What concerns me is Van Hollen never went to the border the last 4 years on Joe Biden when he had a 600% increase in sex trafficking in women and children. You have a record number of no-inspected terrorists crossing that border. You had 250,000 Americans die from fentanyl overdose because of the open border. You had over 4,000 illegal aliens died making that journey, which is an historic record. What shocks me is he's remained silent on the travesty that happened on our southern border. Many people died. Thousands of people died. I met with hundreds of angel moms and dads who buried their children that were murdered by an illegal alien. How many angel moms and dads has he met in the state of Maryland? That's what concerns me.
Yeah, how many angel moms and dads has Senator Van Hollen, have these other folks who are going down there to meet with a alleged violent gang member who is clearly and not a U.S. citizen? Why is he more concerned about meeting with him than he is with meeting Americans who have been harmed by or who have lost loved ones or had loved ones harmed by those who are in this country illegally? And he points out other things, too, that are often overlooked and not mentioned. Over 4,000 people died making the journey. Let's just say for a moment you don't find a concern about all these things that have happened with, I know the vast majority of you do, probably almost all of you, but maybe there's a couple of you out there who think, I don't, those things aren't that big of a concern to me. What about the fact that 4,000 people making the trip to cross our southern border illegally died on the journey? What about that? What about the people that have died, had their lives turned upside down because of the drug fentanyl? What about the 600% increase in sex trafficking that occurred across our border under the Biden administration? These are the questions that Tom Homan asks, and I don't think Chris Van Hollen's talked about any of those things. Maybe he has. If he has, he certainly hasn't made the same level of political stunt with it. Why isn't he out there talking about these things? Why isn't he concerned about these other concerns that Tom Homan mentions? This is what regular, average Americans want to know. They've seen the harm done to this country by folks who are here illegally, criminal, violent folks, and they just want to know why he can't be consistent. I got to go into this segment. SDG.